I am flattered that I have been given this opportunity to speak to an audience as distinguished, as knowledgeable as I can see it is. I am an Indian journalist, have been one for long years, but recently sometimes people also introduce me as an Indian Muslim, which I find very disconcerting, because all my life that is precisely what I have tried to undermine about myself, that I'm a journalist, and like all the others, I'm an Indian. But the mistake is made, and it is not of recent origin. My friend, the late Prime Minister of India, called Inder Gujral for a short period, was going to Bangladesh on a trilateral summit between India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. So he had a whole bevy of journalists with him. There were Chatterjees and Banerjees and Chakravartis and Roys and Ghoshes. If anyone familiar with India would know that these are very thoroughbred Bengali names, Bengali Brahmin names. And so Inder called me up and she said, "Saeed, I'm going to Bangladesh, Dhaka. Will you come along?" I said, "What will I do there?" He says, "Look, we need a Muslim." So, I mean, he was a friend enough to say that. So I said, "Well, now the Prime Minister is asking me, I'll go along." So I sat in the plane and landed in Dhaka, and lo and behold, all the Chatterjees and Mukherjees and Chakravartis, all the Bengalis, they got together with the Bengalis on the other side. And I've never been more isolated with my Islam than I was during that tour of Bangladesh. Because people forget that Bangladesh itself created a total negation of the Islamic and the religious, that a theological state can be sustainable. So it was linguistic Bengal which trumped and triumphed. And Bangladesh today, despite all the problems, is a promising expedition. When I came here, actually, I was invited for a talk in Rome, of all places. But Air India has a facility. You can fly, they of course pay for your fare. You can fly to Rome and fly out from London, pay for this loop, Rome-London, which I did because of the elections, your elections here. And the minute the elections were over, I was getting calls from home, because apparently the whole thing, the situation in India was getting a little, shall we say, it's an ironical statement to make, that because of huge agitations, there was a little bit of hope. Because so far, people had been very docile, had been very acquiescent in things that they should not acquiesce in. And suddenly you had the students, and it was not just a body of one denomination or the other. It was young people of all denominations, and who were on the march. And how that is proceeding, I'm not well equipped to report on, because I know as much as you do. All I can tell you is that the result of your elections does have a bearing on the situation in India. It does have a situation on many things in various parts of the world. And I mean, we are at a time when you got people on the march in Paris, in Hong Kong, in everywhere in Latin America, in Sudan, in Lebanon. So surely the second coming is nigh. There should be no doubt about that. But India, why India is a little unique is because I was asking my friend David Page here, who's a historian. I said, David, do you know in history where a government has tried to oppress, suppress, disenfranchise 200 million people? 200 million people. That is the population of Muslims in India. And therein hangs the tale. In recent years, Mr. Narendra Modi, this is not the first BJP government. I knew the earlier government of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was he was the president of the BJP once upon a time. But the international environment was different. What is happening in India, many of you would be familiar, and I don't want to go through the tear-jerking narrative of people being lynched, which they are being lynched. A person is suspected of having stored beef in his refrigerator. His name is Pelu Khan, and the police appears on the scene, and the man is murdered. He's lynched. There's no post-mortem of the man, but they go to the fridge and take out the so-called beef, and they send it for forensic testing, whether it was indeed beef or buffalo or whatever else. One can carry on. This can be very boring because what has been happening in the last few years is terrible. You can't eat the cow. Any number of instances where people just carting buffaloes and the cow and other animals have been just simply stopped, beaten up. There's a business angle to it because then they can keep the cattle and make some money. There's another thing, a very peculiar thing called love jihad. Now, jihad, as you know, is jihad. I mean, we go and declare jihad and change the heathens into the straight and narrow of Islam, and that is jihad. Or we fight for a right cause, that is jihad. But here, love jihad is given a religious connotation, that boys seduce Hindu girls and thereby procreate, and their numbers grow, and thereby they are increasing the number of Muslims. So it's called love jihad. I mean, believe it or not, that there have been incidents of love jihad, of beef, and just simple, straightforward. I mean, thousands and thousands of Muslims are just put away in jail for no rhyme or reason. No, there's a purpose behind all this. It is why, firstly, as I said, why your elections are important, because the international environment is important, because the international environment is precisely which gave this huge boost to the kind of politics that Mr. Narendra Modi is embarked on. I'll explain what. In the year of the Lord, 9/11 happened. You see, what has happened is, as you know, 9/11, at that stage, Mr. Modi was a RSS, Rashtra Swayam Sevak Sangh, which is a right-wing fascist Hindu organization of which he was a functionary in Delhi. He was sent to Gujarat. The present hero of our narrative was sent to Gujarat when he was member of no assembly, because a certain chief minister, Keshav Bhai, had to be removed, and this man was considered a little dynamic, and he was going to get into the saddle. This happens. He finds that in the by-elections which were going to elect him, there were 3 by-elections in Gujarat, Congress won. And that is when the button was pressed for this horrendous, in some state, in 2 of the 3 elections, the Congress won. He barely scraped through. That is when they pressed the button, and you had a virtual Holocaust on 2002 February. 2002 February is when about 1,000 or 2,000, some people say, Muslims were virtually slaughtered. Women, pregnant women with their fetuses taken out and bashed against the wall. Things. I can carry on, and this will become tedious. There's a lot of that has happened. A lot of that has happened, and like everyone else, even we have become impervious. We listen to the story and we become quiet, and the conversation moves on. Now, this happened precisely after 9/11. 9/11, and when he became chief minister on the 18th of October 2001, Godhra happens later. The only thing that the world was riveted on was military action in Afghanistan. So we had boom, 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 boom going on. The world was, Islamophobia was the flavor of the day. Islamophobia was a global event, and it was the canopy of this global Islamophobia gave him, Modi, the quiet. He was able to carry out his project in Gujarat once, twice, and again thrice. And then he was taken out of Gujarat. He'd done wonderfully. He had totally communalized polarized the society in terms of Hindus and Muslims, and he was now being sent out by the RSS to Delhi in 2014. He has been very true to his word. In the very first speech in May 2014 that Mr. Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, gave, he spelled out for the first time in Indian history that we have to cleanse ourselves of 1,200 years of serfdom. In other words, of subjugation. There's a word, what is the English translation for ghulami? Ghulam means a slave. But that is not, the English would be subjugation. So far, the well-mannered politician in India talked of your domination of India, the British domination of 200 years. But the Mughal and the Muslim period was treated as local because they came and they settled down, just as waves of others before them had come and settled down. Of course, it was duplicitous. Many people nurtured the grievance, and there were many of them were with the Congress party. They did not speak up while Nehru was there. They did not speak up when Gandhi was there, but they were there. And this particular kind of politics received an impetus. And I think before I complicate matters too much, because this is not only about Hindu, Muslim, it is not, I mean, if I take out an Indian currency note, it is amazing, most people don't realize that this is an Indian currency note. It is denomination 100, or any denomination, indicated in the national language, which is Hindi, English, which is the link language, and then on this side, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 languages, many of them with classical literatures predating Christ. That is the experiment on which a certain kind of Hindu uniformity is thought to be imposed. Now, it is true, 80% of the country is Hindu. It is true. But everybody is, look what's happening in Assam. There is a Hindu, but then what happened in the Islamic context, you had Bengali nationalism supersede Islamic nationalism. Likewise, there is a Tamil nationalism, there is a Malayali nationalism, there is a Kannada nationalism, there is a Bengali nationalism, there is an Assamese, very, very vociferous now, Assamese nationalism. So once you proceed slowly and furtively, you're likely to make some gains. But the minute you throw the Brahmastra, you play the last card, what you do is you immediately disturb this equilibrium which is inherent, and that is why what they are embarked on, is it a feasible proposition or is it not a feasible proposition? To clarify things, I have not. Just this morning I was talking to my wife. I said the best way I can do it is to give you this little triangle. Now this is the caste pyramid of India. I should have had it there, but then this was suddenly improvised this morning. I thought it will make some sense. The concierge gave me the board, and he said, oh, and here it is. Now this is the upper castes, who've always been the dominant caste. This is a caste which is called the OBC, which means other backward castes. And below them, the huge majority is the lowest caste, the Dalit, what the British, you call them the scheduled castes, and so on. So they're still called the scheduled castes, by the way. So British imprimatur doesn't go away easily. So they're still called scheduled castes. And now, lo and behold, In 1989, things were proceeding, the missionaries were coming, and there was structural violence in this system, and therefore the missionaries did have a field day. Before that, the Muslims. So therefore, if you have 200 million Muslims, they didn't all of them come from Central Asia. There was a huge volume of conversion that took place in the country. And much of it was on account of this, what I call structural violence within the system. Now, why structural violence? There is class here, there is class everywhere, and there are gradations, there is a cascading class structure everywhere. Here, what is different is that you have, if you are here somewhere, you have to be born into this caste. There is no upward mobility. Once a Qabla, son will be a Qabla, will be a Qabla, will be a Qabla. And you will be rewarded. That is your karma. And you will be rewarded in subsequent lives based on how you fulfilled yourselves here. So therefore, this is the structure. But it had to be used by politicians. So in 1989, Rajiv Gandhi, who actually had come with about 400 seats in a house of 543 in 1984, after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, lost everything by the time in 1989 elections took place, and VP Singh came to power. VP Singh was a Rajput. So far the Brahmins had ruled. This was another caste which had come in. And when he became a little wobbly, he played a trick. There was in the shelf a thing called the Mandal Commission report. What was that? The Mandal Commission report gave guaranteed reservation of jobs in government's services to this middle, the OBCs. Now what happened is, with this and this, the majority has been devoured and the upper castes would not have it. So you had this huge caste war going on. This huge caste war. These people, Saeed Naqvi is outside this triangle. I am what they call an outcast. You would be an outcast. Yes, we are an outcast. You are not. We are a Malecha. The outcast. I'm not in it. I may be somewhere there by virtue of class, but within this structure, it is sacrosanct. You can't get in there. Ramnath Goenka, the owner of Indian Express, used to tell me, Saeed, if you were not a Muslim, I would make you the editor any day. I said, Ramnath ji, I'll become a Hindu, but then you'll have to make me a Brahmin. Oh, he said, you know, a snake when it goes into a hole straightens. You will never straighten there also, he told me. He was a lovely man, very communal, very friendly with me. It was like a grandfather and a naughty grandson. That was the equation between me and the owner, a great owner of the Indian Express. So that's it. So I am outside. Now what happens is that this lot begins to co-opt me. He says now he's sensing political victory, this lot. So if he co-opts me, he can topple the structure. Can you imagine? The caste pyramid has been inverted, reversed. Aha! He has been around, you know, before the hills were there. He said, no. We are going to target him. We are going to target him as the enemy, as the demon, as the threat to our civilization, to our women who are getting raped, to our culture, to everything, this fellow. And that way, this will be stabilized. So the struggle, basic struggle, I'm explaining to you why this is happening. The basic struggle is this. Into this comes my second triangle. The second triangle is this. Hindu-Muslim, New Delhi, Srinagar, Kashmir, India, Pakistan. Hindu-Muslim, India, Pakistan, New Delhi, Srinagar, they are one complex of issues. They are one complex of issues. You touch one line of the triangle, as any elementary geometry class will teach you, any line or any angle, you immediately affect the other two. So, to target him, we have to keep the thing a simmer. We have to need all the three elements of this here. Hate Pakistan. Oh, the founding fathers gave us a wonderful idea. They, after all, let me give you the power of hating Pakistan, the strength. Where does it derive its strength from? My friend Vinod Mehta, who many of you know, was an editor. We were in school together in Lucknow. I don't think we knew the difference in our faith, religion, culture, food, habits. We were in and out. He became editor and he died 2-3 years ago. Vinod's conversation with me at one stage, it began actually rather awkward. He said, Saeed, can you give me a piece from a Muslim perspective? I said, et tu? I have a Muslim perspective now? I said, yes. So then he said, Saeed, let me ask you something. There has been 1,000 years of Muslim rule, 200 years of British rule. We've given you a country there. Where do you stand? Now, there are as many Muslims in India as there are in Pakistan. Vinod's question is very valid. I said, I know what you're saying. What you are saying is that there has been Muslim rule, there has been British rule, the Muslims now have a country, and what about the Hindu? And this is 80% of Hindu country. Point taken. So what you're saying is, Vinod, that you would like to be in the steering wheel, but surely you will give me a seat in that bus. Of course. So I said, the mistake. Now here I am saying something which people are so, ideas are so congealed in the human mind and so fixed that they have written papers on it that they will not change their opinion. According to me, at the time of partition in 1947, there was a thing called the two-nation theory. Two-nation theory meant that Hindus and Muslims are two nations. The Congress party said no. And in fact, when the cabinet mission went to India in 1946, it was more or less settled that India would remain united in a certain kind of way. There will be different kinds of states and there would be a central authority, blah, blah, blah. It would be a federal kind of structure. Nehru said yes. Jinnah said okay, agreed. Everyone was. This is the time of Wavell. Now there's a lot happens between Lord Wavell, who was a wonderful man, and Mountbatten. This was his time. By the time Mountbatten came, Nehru said yes. But then he went to Bombay and gave a press conference. Now it was a very delicate thing, agreement between the Muslim, between Jinnah and him by and large, that yes, we shall agree to these of the cabinet mission plan. But he goes and says, yes, we've agreed, but the constitution, there will be a constituent assembly which will decide. Jinnah said, my God, if he's going back on this one now, there will be no end to it. So, to cut the long story short, they agreed on June 3, 1947, Lord Louis Mountbatten came out with a plan drawn up in Shimla, and the Congress Party, without any hesitation, signed on the dotted line. What was the plan? That there shall be two states on communal lines. Now, if you are opposed to the two-nation theory, but you have accepted half of the two-nation theory by accepting Pakistan, then my friend Vinod Mehta's question acquires some relevance. He says, look, so where do we go? I said, no, Nehru wanted. Now, Nehru's secularism is something that is constantly brought into question and criticism because we have discovered that it has not been sustainable. There was, even then, as Mountbatten's plan is agreed, some people said, look, let the army remain united, because there was all that millions of people were killed coming in. The army will be secular, British army, let it monitor the whole thing. No, said Babu Rajendra Prasad, the most pacifist of all the leaders. No, because they feared that this partition that had happened would be exposed to possibilities of being reversed if the army remained there. So no, the day partition happens, said he, and others, the army shall be divided. So the army was divided. Now, Nehru's secularism had various reasons, two simple. One was that he and his entire Indian civil service boys, they were very conscious of the club over here. And whenever he writes to Indira, he always advises her, you must go and see Mrs. Lasky when you are in London. And Harold Lasky was a great friend of his, and so on and so forth. And he's very conscious of the left of center of the British establishment. And there he couldn't declare himself a Hindu. So he was very squeamish. Hindu was a lower middle class thing. So he was squeamish about that. That's one. But in the other thing, he was very clever. He was, on the one hand, a very liberated man, but on the other, he never forgot the fact that he was a Kashmiri Pandit. He was a Kashmiri Pandit, and Kashmir was important. The only way to keep Kashmir, having agreed to a Pakistan, was to declare yourself secular Otherwise, you lose the argument on the contiguity principle to Kashmir, which abuts Pakistan. You follow? This is, well, people will still argue, and they will argue till the cows come home, and this is a little, but the liberal Hindu doesn't want to open up that debate. Liberal Muslim doesn't want to open up that debate. But that Vinod's question is real. Now, so to keep the thing a simmer, Hindu Muslim, Pakistan, Kashmir. So you declare Article 370, which gives Kashmir its special character under certain guarantees that Nehru had obtained and that the Kashmiris had obtained from the government then. So Kashmir is a simmer. India, Pakistan, the only two countries. I mean, we are the only country in the world where every automobile in the world is disgorged and where people can drive around in circles and they can't go through to Pakistan and then Afghanistan and then to Central Asia and come to Europe. We are the only country. So Pakistan, relatives. We work out rendezvous. David would know. Others when there used to be BBC Bush House, there was a lovely bar there, and that was one occasion, one ventilation, where you had Indians and Pakistani journalists could get together and talk. Nowhere. My cousins across the border can't visit me, I can't visit them. That is the state of affairs. And when there was a world order, the bipolar world, and even the momentary soul superpower moment, there was at least somebody who could pull people back, who could dictate something, who could, at the moment, there is nobody. So you've got Pakistan and India. If Kashmir, keep watching. They're both nuclear armed. They have tried, but the policy here is that India, Pakistan must not be friends. The reason is that Pakistan nurtures terrorism. They say that is non-state actors. We do not control everything. At one stage they controlled everything. Today probably that is not the case. But even so, the argument is you end terrorism, otherwise no talk. They say no talk unless Kashmir is on the agenda. So this endless thing carries on, and Kashmir remains, and India remains a simmer. So what you are hearing now that this Citizens Amendment Bill, what is it? First they tried it in Assam. The idea was to block. And the wording is brilliant. You have to see it and you have to debate it. Look, people in India are still very sensitive to what is written here. People in India are sensitive to what you say. We are still very, very sensitive. I think you should just be objective. I'm not saying one way or the other. There should be an impression that you have not taken your eyes off the ball altogether. That you are actually, the world is watching. But the world is not watching. Trump is in his problems. Europe is in lamentable state of affairs. You have Viktor Orban in Hungary talking of, and you have the foreign minister of Israel on a public podium in front of Mike Pompeo in Warsaw saying that Poles have anti-Semitism. They suckle anti-Semitism from their mothers at birth. And then the conference this is the mood. There's a thing called Bannonism. Let me alert you to that. Now, Steve Bannon was a very special man with Donald Trump. He was his conscience keeper in the national security, but the system wouldn't take him because he was a friend of Duke, the head of the KKK. And that was the kind. So he was out. But the link is there. He goes to Rome, meets Matteo Salvini, meets Marine Le Pen, meets Farage is on his radio show. And this is being linked up. So you have a link up of virtually people get a little, they don't like the expression fascism yet, but they are all these states. I mean, if they come to power, Marine Le Pen is what, if not a fascist? I'm asking you. And Modi is absolute. When they clasp hands, all of them have a collective orgasm. There is no doubt. Modi is very, very happy with this election result here. Had it been other way, they would have been, it would have been different. So the international system, as it is, as chaotic as it is, has a bearing on what is going on. Now the Citizens Amendment Bill, which was rammed through Parliament, what does it say? It says, let me give you a personal anecdote. I come from a village in North India, in UP. It's called Mustafabad. Ours is an old house. It's not a palace, but it's an old house. It's about 300 years old. So my sister rings me up here in my hotel. Aruna, my wife, is here. She says, Bhaiya, Bhaiya means brother, where are the papers for the house? I said, we've never thought about that. Why? He said, this amendment bill that's coming in, they'll walk into the house and they'll ask for the papers. So we have to have 300 years. So nothing will happen. But look at the psychological dislocation that has been affected. Look at the psychological dislocation. And you will have poor Muslims. They've got little Bantustans. They have enclaves where they are going to park these people who are found to be without papers. Therefore, they came in from elsewhere. Now, none of it will work because it will go to the Supreme. They've had this temple thing going. There's no end to it, this litany. What is the purpose? The purpose is that we would have glided in 1947 from British Raj to Hindu Raj. If that was Pakistan, we would have been Hindustan. But Saeed, what about, you mean Muslims? I said, look, I keep giving them the example of this wonderful country. I really think it is a wonderful country. I said, look, it's an Anglican monarchy. And the fellow you see sitting next to the Prime Minister, Sajid, happens the bald fellow, he's a Muslim. And the mayor of London. And the girl who's creating a lot of mischief is Preeti Patel, they're Indian. So therefore, it's a very secular. At one stage, there were 4 Muslim players in the English cricket team, just 2 years ago. So, therefore, it is absolutely, the Hindu is by definition not an exclusive term. he would have been in the lead, and we would have gone together, and Vinod and I would have been exactly, he would not let me sit on the steering wheel. He would have been at the steering, but we would have been together. We would have then bargained for jobs in the Indian administrative service, honest bargain for how many policemen, how many in the army, how many entrepreneurial enterprises, how many, but with this lid of secularism, with hollow, has been extremely detrimental. The class of Hindu who nursed a grievance that we have been denied rule the RSS has tapped into exactly that reservoir, and he is now demanding, and the only way he can do it is to polarize to such an extent. Now we come to the sorrowful bit. It cannot be done. It simply cannot be done, which is sad in another way. Therefore, more vexation of the spirit continuously, more murders, more lynchings, more love jihads, more temples, more mosque complaints about mosques being built, and towards no end. There's one trick. There's one trick, and it collapses. The whole argument comes down like melting ice cream. And the trick, sir, is this. Once, mark my word when it happens, once India-Pakistan relations are normalized, it will immediately have an impact like its geometrical logic. It will have an impact on this, it will have an impact on this. Hindu-Muslim temperatures will come down, and Hindu-Muslim temperatures. Then comes the other question. If they come down, then what happens to Hindu consolidation? So here you have the dog chasing the tail all over again. If this happens, then how on earth are you going to consolidate the Hindu? Well, I leave the rest to, I suppose you may have, if you have a few questions to ask, I shall be delighted. But this, I've given you the rough. It is, as I said, never in history has it been attempted. 200 million people being disenfranchised. Is it possible? Will there not be riots? Will there not be agitations? Will the world keep quiet? That is where I fear that the world is far too busy with itself, everyone, and the global system has completely collapsed. There is no world order. If India and Pakistan go to war, in the olden days you'd have Harold Wilson pull one fellow in and someone else the other side. Today, there is no one to pull anyone back. I mean, unless you are leaving the field wide open to the Chinese, who are slowly, with a tremendous sense of purpose, they have put their heads down and they are playing for a very long knock.
Thank you very much for such a wide-ranging and yet at the same time deep analysis. I'm not sure how much comfort we can draw from it, but it nevertheless, I think, shows us some possibilities way ahead. We have some time for questions. Would you like to come back? And is there there's a question at the back?
Mamata Banerjee, the First Minister of West Bengal, has expressed her total opposition to what's happening in Delhi. How do you see that playing out?
I didn't get what
Mamata Banerjee.
Yes, Mamata Banerjee.
She is completely opposed to the initiatives being taken in New Delhi.
On
CAV
yes, of course. You see, it is boomeranged because they thought that by needling the Bengali, they will have bothered her. It has become a Bengali Assamese, and the Assamese and Northeast is up in arms. He says, what the hell, everyone's going to come here. They want chaos. It is possible. I never in the history of New Delhi, where I've been a reporter for the last 45 odd years, never has New Delhi been so short on information. So no one knows what is going on in the cavernous pathways of Monsieur Modi and Amit Shah. No one knows. So therefore, I don't know but it has boomeranged. You have Assamese Brahmins on the picket lines. They will not take it. In other words, you're saying is all the other communities can come in. So the Hindu-Muslim doesn't matter. They say, but we are a receptacle for everyone. Now let there be another question and then I'll...
Obviously, Pakistan has seen the influence from Saudi Arabia, Salafist influence in Wahhabism and Deoband. If you say 200 million Indian Muslims are disenfranchised, what is the danger of just 1% of that population becoming radicalized by Deoband or Salafist influences and becoming a very serious jihadi militant threat to the Indian state?
That question has been asked. That is a consideration. There's no great evidence of that having happened yet, because there's a reason for that. Wahhabism can grow in the arid sands of Arabia. It does not grow. Firstly, there's no such thing as an Indian Muslim. Let me correct you on that. There is a Kerala Muslim who's a Mappila, whose culture is Malayali. The theatre of Kerala, which is Kathakali, and the greatest actor of Kathakali, which is all Hindu mythology, by the way, is Kala Mandalam Haidar Ali, as you can make out. Haidar Ali is a Muslim name. So it is unlikely that Kala Mandalam Haidar Ali is going to be persuaded by Wahhabism. But yes, what could happen is, if this persists, if this general victimization of Muslims and marginalization of Muslims persists, then things may go wrong, but they will not go wrong at the margins. You see, the danger to India, we must realize, is that we since 1947 are already 3 countries. I've shown you the currency note. The center of gravity of all of this is what they call the cow belt. The cow belt is UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, someone was here, Rajasthan, and Haryana, not parts of Maharashtra, Gujarat, not Bengal, not Tamil Nadu, not Kannada, not Kerala, and not Northeast. So if you push too hard, and this brittle center, centrifugal forces will unleash themselves. There is absolutely no doubt. We are seeing it now. We are seeing it already. Already there's retribution in Maharashtra in the last election. Already the brothers in arms on Hinduism, namely the Shiv Sena, has walked out on this bill in the House, in Parliament. So it isn't going to be simple. It is going to be tough for the Indian Muslims, because if it is a long haul, then there will be a lot of suffering. The end result, what is the dream result? 2025 happens to be the centenary of the RSS, Rashtra Swayam Sevak Sangh's centenary is 2025. Now they would like to declare some kind of a Hindu Rashtra, and the cherry on the cake will be the temple in Ayodhya, which they have made a tactical mistake, because the temple in the mosque on the ground where Lord Ram was supposed to have been born, has been demolished. Now a temple, you have been given a carte blanche by the Supreme Court to go and build the temple. So you can build the temple, but politically, the bird that laid the golden egg is dead. So you have to find other birds to lay the golden egg of communalism. This, they thought, would be it. And there may be others. There could be a little flare-up with Pakistan, and that could get out of control. Or will there be a revision on Hindu Rashtra? And what is the difference between Hindu Rashtra and the Hindu Raj I'm talking about? Which would have been possible in 47, there would have been no problem. Which is what we were. And we would have been secular. Yes, Kashmir would then have been independent, as Sardar Patel, Nehru's number 2 Home Minister, wanted. He said, look, it's illogical. That belongs elsewhere, but let's keep the rest of the. So Jammu and Ladakh would have been here, and the valley may have gone there, which is now all what might have been. But at the moment, we are in some kind of a jam. This particular lot, might it lose the elections? There's in India they call it the Tina factor. There is no alternative. And the Gandhi family has let down the Congress party very, very badly. They have just not moved an inch. It has become a family thing, and they want just to keep the family at number 10 Janpath, which is a very impressive address, and the lady does not mind if she remains the leader, some kind of a respectable leader in the opposition, and all her cohorts who are actually, they don't mind being cockroaches under the furniture of Sonia Gandhi and sundry other people. That is the way it is. So there is no Congress party. An old man called Sharad Pawar at the age of 80, he fought, and he turned the tables on the BJP in Maharashtra. There is the left has collapsed. You have some individuals like Mamata. What is her policy? What does she stand for? We don't know. The Bengali nationalism, others can stand on that for. So there is no alternative. India is primarily a Hindu country. That must be said. And it would have been, and the Hinduism is the Hinduism of great tolerance. You know, Lord Rama, I am exceeding your question, but this is something you might, you know, there's a poem which says, "O Lord, Lord Ram, O Lord, you transformed a statue into Ahilya." Ahilya is a very beautiful woman who had been under a curse, had become stone. But Ram touches her and she comes back to her beauty. You transformed Ahilya, you great, an animal kingdom, you made him your devotee Hanuman, the monkey god. You, Chandal, you made a devil virtually into a human being. You do all these things to others. Why is your munificence not being beamed at me, O Lord? Now you would say this is a devotional poem written by Abdul Rahim Khan Khana, who was Akbar's, and in Sanskrit. There is no poetry in India in Sanskrit on Lord Ram. This is in Sanskrit and by Abdul Rahim Khan Khana, and on that there can be hundreds and hundreds. Poetry, music, Indian classical music, the great reservoir of music, of yoga, of Ayurveda, of the great thoughts, and which had Darashikoh not translated the Upanishads into Persian, there would have been no Indology in Germany nor here. I mean, he was the one. So therefore there's been a great cultural commerce over 1,000 years, which is sought to be set aside, and an amnesia is being imposed on that for pure political reasons, so that they can get Hindu Raj would have been all those things. Hindu Rashtra is transformational. In other words, we uproot everything. To such an extent, how many of you have been to New Delhi, that Central Vista by Lutyens and Baker? Have you seen? You know that's going to be dismantled? It is Hinduization. I mean, that's absurdity. That magnificent vista and the Houses of Parliament are going to be dismantled. The project has already been cleared, and you are going to have a new House of Parliament and new Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was Viceregal Lodge since the 30s. That is the vulgar part of it. The earlier part, my conversation with Vinod, was negotiable, because there's a wonderful, the wonder that was India was wonderful, and this that is being sought to be created is vulgar, is a distortion, and embarrasses the Hindu. In fact, if you, sorry, I've not allowed you to ask questions.
You're beginning to run out of time, but I think we have time. Let's take two questions together and then invite Naqvi to respond. One there, please.
You've talked a lot about the Hindus. You haven't talked much about the Muslims themselves. Do they have functioning madrasas? Are the mullahs trained and effective? Is there a ulama of any kind of central gathering of Muslims?
That's a very important question. That is the sad part of it.
Take the second question.
Okay.
My question was on the role of the media in the past few years and going forward.
Okay.
Muslim media. The Muslim condition is dismal. For reasons in history, the mullah, the politician, has patronized the mullah. The mullah is the clergy. At our weddings, when the mullah came, there's a difference between the alim, the one who is a theological scholar, and the mullah who came and organized marriages. He was laughed at. And he was very much an object and butt of humor. There's one of the most magnificent things that we and that Muslims can be proud of is a very rich tradition of poetry. And all of that poetry is so full of irreverence, so irreverent that if I recited some of it, you would be astonished. In my house, my wife will be my witness, and I think David has seen it. There's a little plaque in our dining room which my mother wrote in her hand, which is her interpretation of her religion. Mai khoro, drink. Mushaf besozo, band Quran. Atish andar khanazan, go set fire to the house of Kaaba. But mind you, it's a poet. He's leading you on. He doesn't mean a damn thing. What he's saying is, Mai khoro, drink. Mushaf besozo, burn the Quran. Atish andar khanazan, go to Khana Kaaba, Kaaba, burn it. Har she khwari kun, commit every sin. There may still be forgiveness, but mardum azari nakum, but there is no forgiveness if you hurt a fellow human being. This is the tenor of all the poetry. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is that this poetry, the politician, never fell back on my poets. He never fell back on Ghalib, on Mir, on Josh, on Faiz. He fell back on the mullah. Why did he fall back on the mullah, did the politician? Because in India, despite everything, despite 1,000 years of cultural commerce, there was also an uninstitutionalized apartheid. Apartheid, as you know, is separate development. So you have Soweto and you have in Johannesburg outside, what is that place where the Indians were given and the white areas. Uninstitutionalized apartheid means, I'll give you an example. I'm talking in Allahabad University and I said, you're Hindus and Muslims. Muslims, raise your hand. How many of you have seen a tulsi plant in the courtyard of a Hindu? Not one? Not one? No, but we are great friends. We are fair. No, I'm asking you a straight question. Hindus, how many of you have actually gone and visited a Muslim friend? Gone there for a meal? How many do you visit? Well, my mother cooks kebabs, which means he is being from a vegetarian background. Mother cooks kebabs mean that he is halfway there. This. So the politician had to get in touch with the people. He found the mullah as a great contractor. So the mullah became the contractor for the politician. So he became the middleman, playing it both ways. And even on this bill, there are many mullahs, very powerful, who have supported it. Because, why? They will get a member in the upper house, a seat in the upper house. For priests of all religion are the same. And they I mean, I'm quoting Dryden, which is a very irreverent piece. I hope people here don't take it remiss. And if there's a because he was very, very critical of the priestly class. Now, this is it. So, a community is trapped by the mullah, and they will not let him grow out of the madrasa. It is Dr. Adil Khan is a scientist of great repute and great reputation from Aligarh. But how many are there? So you have exceptional cases. But as a community, particularly now that it is so demoralized, that it's even more ghettoized, is getting ghettoized. What happens? A manager of a certain school, whom I know, he sends his kid to a good composite school, where the boys say, look, what are you doing here? You should go to Pakistan. Then next they beat him up. He comes and complains to me. I go to my daughter, Sabah, who's more on the beat as they were. She says, I'm going to take it up. She said, please don't take it up with anybody. We'll be in deep trouble. So the boy is picked out of that school and is taken to a ghetto. So that is what is happening. That is what is happening. A great deal of ghettoization is taking place. But again, I'm limiting myself because it's not happening in Kozhikode. It's not happening in Calicut. It's not happening in Tamil Nadu. It's not happening Bengal, yes. In limited areas, this is not happening, where there is enlightenment. In Kerala is a very enlightened state for two reasons. Is one, missionary schools, missionary education on a scale which gave it 90% literacy ahead of everybody else. And secondly, communism. It was the first state anywhere in the world where communism came through the ballot box in 1967. So both political training and the missionary education has given Kerala a kind of strength which other states do not have, and Muslims particularly are short on that one. Media. I don't want to be critical of your media here, the media in the US. What has happened after globalization and its collapse, financial, in 2008, that's establishments became very powerful and people became very discontented. And the establishments began to line up all the newspapers and the television stations. In Delhi, you can't find all the best journalists. If you want to seek them out, they are on their own blogs. The mainstream has been captured by what we call crony capitalism. In other words, Ambani owns all those channels. Ambani had invested in his victory by all the channels rooting for him, and now he says payback time. So Adani has 11 airports to construct. 11 airports is one hell of a... So, and that kind of thing goes on. So the result is that yes, the media, the opposition does not have the media. The liberal image of the media that we had and is being diluted. In India, it has collapsed. Here, I would not like to comment, but it is not what it used to be. I mean, if you are going to frame the question on, say, Corbyn, if you're going to frame the questions and say, sir, To what extent was Mr. Corbyn responsible for this defeat? So what is the fellow? It's like, have you stopped beating your wife? I mean, what does the person say? He will say, well, to some extent, or to a great extent. Whether it is Andrew Neil, or even Andrew Marr, who are very, very, very fair and aggressive questioners, even there, you have 4 years ago when he came, and then Corbyn came up. I'm not rooting for him, but I'm saying the way. One, of course, he fell between two stools because he couldn't make up his mind between the Leavers and the Remainers, and so he couldn't compose them and he couldn't lead them. Fair enough. So he lost. That fellow was simple. He said, let Brexit be done. And so the simplicity of that slogan. Okay. But he waffled this way and that way. Other than that, the second reason is him. What is wrong with him? Does he bash up his wife? Does he... No. You see it between the lines. You can go to your mullahs and you can go to Caracas. So that kind of remark. So here, at least, I will not say it is as bad, but it is check the arrest the decline, because I've always believed that we followed your newspaper style, we followed your... BBC is being questioned just now, I gather. So this business of the establishments influencing the media, to what extent they do it, I think in India its situation is bad. People are moving out into their own blogs. The best journalists, you have to read them in the blogs. That is unfortunately the picture. And I think here, John McDonnell said something the other day which I found rather attractive. Let there be a debate on the role of the media and our politics. If you don't need that debate, but we certainly do. We in India do need a debate, media and politics, because people do not have a voice. Ambani does, Adani does, big business does, but people don't have a voice. That is the flaw in our democracy at the moment.
We have to conclude.
Thank you very much.